Hi, this is Joseph Schmidlin. I'm in the Sonorium, and we had a request from Ben Ghost to go through some of the instruments, so I'd like to do that now with you guys. This is the Sonorium by Svarum, Svarum Sound Research Center, and it was developed by Aurelio Hammer. We call this the sound spiral. We can play whatever interval we want, spin it. The most basic interval that we should all know is the perfect fifth. So this happens to be a C and a G, but we could pick any perfect fifth. Pick a D and an A. And then you can spin it, which gives the listener this feeling of movement and maybe spiraling to the heavens. We like to think like that sometimes. Also, something to consider with this is, do we go from low to high or high to low? And what I mean is we play the lower notes. So we move the energy from a low note to a high note, or we could do the opposite. And bring the energy down from high to low. So just different ways you can work with the sound spiral. But it's super user-friendly and really open to creativity. So you can bring your intention in, you can connect with your client, see what their intention is for the session, and these instruments can all be brought in that way. And these are the brass bell plates, and these are precisionally tuned, so they overtone tune them. So they don't only tune them to themselves, but they tune them to the overtones that are coming out above. So for instance, this is the C, and then you have the next octave C, which would be right here. So it's tuned to there, and then the next, the perfect fifth. So all these notes are in this one. And then the next fifth. So this is how the overtones work and how the overtones layer on each other. But just by playing one note, you already have these fundamental overtones built in. Okay, so just a little bit about the bell plates. So they're perfect for layering sound. And sometimes we use the smaller mallet and the larger mallet together. For me, the best part is the ringing out. So just to let the sound ring at the end leaves a sweetness. And for the listener, it lets the listener actually go into silence. So a lot of our listening is done with the body, and it's not done with the mind or done with the ear listening, it's body listening. And when we play all these sounds, we're exciting the cells, we're exciting the body in a way, and it finds a way to organize around these fundamental sounds and the overtones. And we get deeper in the classes into the science of all of that, but I'll kind of leave it there. And when we go to silence, in a way, that's when the listening continues. So many of you can still hear the notes that I just played. They're still ringing in our conscious, right? And so that will go on for a little while, and then eventually it'll go to silence. And just that path from sound to silence is, it's actually described in the ancient yoga texts, but they talk about this Nada Brahma, so the beginning of creation. And sound was the spark in a way. And when we say sound, we can say vibration. Vibration was the spark of creation. So if we follow that vibration back to the beginning, back to the origin, we're gonna take ourselves back to unison, or back to one, or back to singularity. So just an interesting way for me to think about sound, and what we're actually doing when we're working with somebody, or when we're working with ourselves in a sonic environment, and working with sound as a meditation. Sound is consciousness, and this kind of thing. So let's see what else we got here. We got the storm drum. And we create this echo field chamber. And so this gives the listener a different flavor. So these are very precisely tuned and specific intervals. And this is just basically full spectrum noise. On a spectrograph, you would just see basically clouds of noise. You wouldn't see perfect harmonics like with these instruments. So that also creates a different psychoacoustic effect in the body. Okay. The other one we have that gives that same kind of field is, we have this, sometimes we call it the rainbow rattle. Shells and seeds. We have different textures. And create a bit of a storm environment here. And for the listener, these different textures create different moods in the body. They touch different tissue, different psychological perspectives. This one's quite abrasive. This would be likened to maybe a shaman's rattle, right? They really shake up space, as opposed to this one, or I like this one too. And you can see how it changes your breath when you do this. The way it excites the nerves. Yeah. So we've been teaching classes for, the last 5-7 years on how to work in these sonoriums. So with Aurelio and myself and many of the other teachers at Svarum, we've been putting together classes, and it was really interesting because maybe the second or third or fourth training we did, I was like, wow, I figured out finally what's the hardest instrument in the sonorium to play, and it's this thing. It's, it's simple, but I'm telling you, it takes a little space and a little presence to really learn this instrument. So what do we got here is the Tubular Bells. So we have one mallet and another mallet. So sometimes I like the softer mallets, and sometimes I like the harder ones. So it's just all depends on the texture you're trying to create. And like the bell plates, these tubes are tuned perfectly. So there's your perfect fifth again. And you can see they're vibrating on this chord, so it gives it a very random movement. So you get a bit of the Doppler effect like you do in the sound spiral. And again, I can move from high tone to low tone or low tone to high tone to create different effect. Again, the perfect fifth. And just letting them ring out. Tubular bells, and we also sometimes say the bell plates are like the solar and the tubular bells the lunar, so we kind of sometimes work with balancing right and left body and the solar and lunar sides. So here we have these resonating tubes, and these are beautiful, like a singing bowl. So we play the resonator tubes by turning the rubbing mallet around the rims. So we have a low G and then a C and then a E, another G and another C. Again, these are working with the overtones, and it specifically works with the Fibonacci spiral. And the Fibonacci series to bring in a nice psychoacoustic effect. I also love these because I can play these and they have a long sustain, so then I can go to the table and do some body work with somebody and still have the sound playing if I don't have a second practitioner with me. And of course, let's go to the plate gong. This is basically the fundamental for the whole sonorium. This is 64 hertz. The plate gong, and here's the mallet that comes with it. So I can get this going and come over here, play that C. Create a whole sonic environment with different textures, the bell plates, the tubular bells, and this large aluminum plate gong. Good. And we can bring in a little effect with the storm drum. So like I said before, this is a creative, playful environment, so you could really go around and mix your knowledge of the science of sound, psychoacoustics of sound, and just playing like a child would play with instruments and just strike anything with, very little knowledge, but maybe more tuned to the texture of what you're playing. And yeah. So now let's go to the bed. The bed has strings underneath it that are all tuned. So we got a resonating chamber here, just like a guitar body, an acoustic guitar body. And right now, even though I stopped playing the strings, it's still, the bed's still vibrating. So when someone's lying on the bed, it's basically sending this vibration into the body and helping the body organize. It's quite a great experience to feel that and to be on this bed when someone's playing it. And again, the notes are all tuned to a C and a G, so it's a perfect fifth. It's a very consonant and inviting vibration that helps the body to go back to the place. It was originally formed in these vortexes in embryo, and so we really tap into the frequencies that were available, with the Earth's magnetic field in the beginning, in utero, and how the cellular body organizes. So this is the idea. So whenever we play the stone, we got to make sure we take our rings off. But this is the sound stone. These stones are hand-picked out by our friend Kartik in these mines in India. Oh, I'm going to have to get some water for the bowl. Okay, so these stones are hand-selected in the mines in India by one of our sound explorers. So there's actually an art to picking out the stones, and then they cut them in these perfect proportions. This is something you really want to hear live, and you want to be next to it. I hope it comes across in the video, but being in the presence of the stone and the vibration the stone makes is really phenomenal. It's so grounding for the body. There's a lot I like to say about mineral. It's such a deep presence in us. So evolutionarily, it's so much older than the humans. But it has a real deep resonance with our cellular biology, actually. Then we have the Glassophone. We have a couple different tetrachords here. also perfectly tuned. Good. So the Glassophone and the stone, to me, bringing these two elements into the sonorium, it just creates magic. And for the listener, if you're deep into a sound experience and you've really surrendered, you've let go, the table's taken you into this really deep place, and the other instruments, when these two come in, it's really phenomenal. Hope you get to experience it. Okay.